Oh, man. There are some baddies out today.
You are not lying, son.
But look at her booty.
Ooh, okay. Oh my God. Yo, these gotta be the biggest titties I ever seen in my life, son. Yo, they look natural too. Look at them bounce.
Yo, look at that one right there going on spring break.
Oh, okay.
Man, I would tear that shit up.
Ooh, there's a pretty lady behind it too.
Oh, she's super pretty.
Yeah, it's cute.
Meme tanks. Cancer. This video is sponsored by the free-to-play online game War Thunder. Use the link in the description below to sign up for free and to get a free premium tanker aircraft in 3 days of premium time. But more on that in a second. When designing a tank, there are 3 factors to keep in mind: maneuverability/speed, armor protection, and firepower. In an ideal world, you'll have an equal balance of all 3. And you can see this reflected with tanks today. Although there are some variations, some being heavier and some being lighter, the idea is to have something that won't be a pushover, can get around pretty well, and can kill almost anything it runs into. This video is not about that though. This is about 3 tanks that said fuck it to the mobility part in a very strange period of tank design that resulted in super heavy vehicles that almost exclusively didn't see combat. So just as a heads up, all these vehicles are pretty rare and there's not a lot of footage of them, so be prepared to see some clips multiple times or other stuff as filler. Also be prepared for the cursed watermark. Because Critical Past is the worst and I am not paying them for something that is in public domain. Okay, let's do this.
Alright, next up at the stage, hide your countries, hide your resources, and hide your spices, because she's colonizing everybody out here. Welcome to the stage, the Tog 2! Talk to him, Tog.
The TOG 2 was the second design developed by the Special Vehicle Development Committee, made up of people that had worked on the original British tanks of the First World War that became nicknamed the Old Gang. This group had a very bad case of do the same thing as last time syndrome with the designs they came up with. It was even worse with the TOG 1, but TOG 2 was created with the idea in mind that World War II may devolve into the same trench warfare scenario as World War I, and because of that, they created this 80-ton behemoth to break through enemy emplacements in a World War I style assault. This, however, had no basis in reality for what World War II was, and by the time it got to testing, the vehicle was outdated and the project was cancelled. All that being said though, it did have some good innovations for the outdated design logic that drove its creation, including torsion bar suspension, a 12-cylinder diesel-electric engine powering 2 electric motors to drive the sprockets, and a 17-pounder for the main gun, which is much better than the very underpowered guns proposed to be put into the TOG 1. But with 8.5 miles an hour for a top speed, this thing would have just gotten eaten up on the battlefield, and it's very understandable why it was cancelled. There's still one TOG 2 left at the Bovington Tank Museum that you can see today.
This beauty all the way from the City of Lights may have run away from you at first, but don't worry, she's a real collaborator at heart. Give it up for the Char 2C! Let's hear it, everybody. Char 2C, what's up?
The Char 2C looks like someone took an FT-17 and elongated it in Photoshop. This design was actually developed during World War I and was planned to be used during the offensives of 1919 had the war not ended. Because of this, it had many World War I era elements to its design, but also a few forward-thinking ones, including a 3-man turret and interleaved road wheels. The tank required a small village of 12 men to crew that included 4 machine gunners and a radio operator. Although missing out in the combat of World War I, 10 of these tanks were activated during the French mobilization of 1939, and during this time there were various upgrades made in an attempt to modernize the vehicle, mostly by upgrading the armor, but were held back and used for propaganda purposes as the French High Command realized that they would do more good there than in combat given the realities of the war. Do you see a theme developing? During the Battle for France in 1940, however, 6 operational tanks of the 51st Battalion were lost in fighting near the Meuse-Semouse station, with a few being captured by the Germans in eastern France.
Grab your oil reserves, hold down your fortifications, cause this baby's gonna get you! Eventually, somehow gonna be shipped from the US to here. It is the T-95! Let's make some fucking noise!
This is the first design we'll be discussing that actually had World War II in mind, but was created, ironically, after running into World War I type problems. Once the Allied troops reached the German border, they ran into the German defenses of the Siegfried Line, and although a good amount of its defensive capability had been stripped to fortify the Atlantic Wall, it had proven a fairly difficult obstacle to get through. The American and British response to this was to create some super heavy anti-tank shell immune vehicles to just pile drive right through. The British created the Tortoise, and the Americans created this, the T-95 Doom Turtle. Not actual name. A super heavy self-propelled gun weighing 86 tons and mounting a high-velocity 105mm gun. The vehicle was designed to be able to absorb shots from German 88mm high-velocity guns and carried 4 sets of tracks on a bogie suspension to help displace the weight. The vehicle did have a lot of problems though, being very underpowered, which resulted in many breakdowns and just the simple fact that with it being so heavy, it would have been a nightmare to ship over to Europe. Never mind finding rail cars that could transport it to the sector it needed to be in. Before the project was completed, the Siegfried line was overrun, but the vehicle continued testing into 1947 to learn about potential future super heavy designs, but was cancelled once the military realized how ineffective super heavy vehicles were and decided they would no longer pursue research. Of the 2 prototypes created, one is still in existence. After being lost in the field for 30 years, it was taken to the Patent Museum, and since it closed, is now in storage at Fort Benning and will be on display in 2020 when the museum opens.
Bonus! Hooray!
The Bob Semple tank, named after the New Zealand Minister of Works, took advantage of the most cutting-edge technology available, including a tractor base and corrugated iron armor. Oh Jesus, what am I doing? Extremely heavy for its components, ranging from 20 to 25 tons, its tractor gearing could not handle the sheer power the vehicle commanded, causing slow speeds, breakdowns, and the need to stop to change gears. Its 6 Bren guns were very inaccurate when firing from their mounts. This was deemed negligible though, as the sheer sight of it on the battlefield would render enemies motionless without even being hit. Unfortunately, this wonder weapon was never able to see service due to the Japanese never invading New Zealand. But then again, the Japanese probably never invaded New Zealand because the Bob Semple tank was present. To my knowledge, there are no Bob Semple tanks left, but you know what they say, the light that burns brightest does not burn for long. Thank you again to War Thunder for sponsoring another episode of Meme Tanks. I am formally changing my vehicle requests for the game from the Skink to the Bob Semple. You can even make it a premium, this just needs to happen. For anyone who doesn't know, War Thunder is a free-to-play realistic vehicle combat game with millions of players clashing in battles on the land, in the air, and on the sea, in over 1,000 historically accurate vehicles from the 30s to the 90s. They even have the T-95. And they need the Bob Semple. The game is available on all platforms, so click the link below to join us with a free premium tank or aircraft and 3 days of premium as a bonus for registration. They also have helicopters now, adding a whole new dynamic. I would also like to thank my patrons on Patreon. It's because of the goal that I met with them that Meme Tanks has been and will continue to be a recurring series, and I'm very grateful for all of them. If you'd like to check out my Patreon or any of my other social media links, you can find them down below. Big thank you as well to my friend Gabe from Normandy for doing the voiceover and the transition titles. And thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.